Hitler, a name that, sends shivers down history's spine. But how did a failed artist, an ex-soldier, rise from obscurity to rule Germany, and nearly the world? And, did he truly die in that bunker in 1945, or is there more to the story than we've been told? Let's rewind to the aftermath of World War I. Germany was a nation in chaos, economically devastated, politically fractured, and humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles. Could desperation create the perfect storm for a demagogue to rise? Enter Adolf Hitler, an Austrian-born veteran of the Great War, bitter, ambitious, and unusually persuasive. But what made him different from the thousands of other disillusioned men wandering post-war Germany? Hitler didn't just use anger, he, weaponized it. He understood, perhaps better than anyone of his era, the raw power of emotion, how it could be harnessed, shaped, and directed like a weapon. In the chaos and humiliation that followed World War I, Germany was a nation seething with resentment, fear, and uncertainty. Hitler saw this, and he seized the moment, transforming collective frustration into a force that could be manipulated for his own ends. He was a master of oratory, using fiery speeches to channel frustration into a vision. His words were carefully chosen, his delivery calculated to ignite the passions of his listeners. He didn't just speak to the crowd, he electrified them, making them feel seen, heard, and part of something greater than themselves. Through his rhetoric, he offered hope, but also stoked fear and resentment, a vision of a Germany restored, but at a horrifying cost. He promised to rebuild the nation, to return it to its former glory, but always at the expense of those he blamed for its downfall. The devastation of the past became fuel for his narrative, a justification for radical change. Jews, communists, and other minorities became the scapegoats, blamed for every misfortune. Through relentless propaganda, he painted them as enemies within, responsible for Germany's suffering. This narrative was repeated until it became accepted as truth by many, deepening divisions and justifying persecution. But here's the question: was it hatred alone that fueled his rise, or something far more calculated? Hitler's manipulation of anger was not just instinctive, it was strategic, a deliberate effort to control the hearts and minds of millions. Hitler studied propaganda like a scientist studies chemicals, experimenting, observing, refining. He analyzed what messages resonated, what images provoked the strongest reactions, and how to repeat them until they became ingrained in the public consciousness. In time, his efforts paid off. An entire nation began to chant his words, echoing his anger, his vision, and his hatred, until it became their own. The weaponization of anger had become a movement, and the consequences would be catastrophic. 1923, the Beer Hall Putsch, a failed coup that could have ended his political career, yet somehow, it didn't. Instead, Hitler was imprisoned, and history took an unexpected turn. In prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, outlining his vision for a 1,000-year Reich. But here's the kicker. Imprisonment didn't weaken him, it gave him time to plan his ultimate ascent. Was this man unlucky, or meticulously strategic? The 1920s in Germany were a time of extraordinary upheaval and uncertainty. The country was still reeling from the devastation of World War I, and the Treaty of Versailles had left deep scars, both economic and psychological, on the German people. Cities like Berlin bustled with life, but beneath the surface, anxiety simmered. The Weimar Republic, Germany's fragile new democracy, struggled to maintain order and stability in the face of mounting challenges. Hyperinflation spiraled out of control, wiping out savings overnight and leaving families destitute. Unemployment soared, and breadlines stretched for blocks as ordinary people struggled to survive. Political violence became a grim part of daily life, with assassinations and street clashes between rival factions making headlines. Chaos seemed to touch every corner of society. And yet, amidst all this turmoil, a new force was quietly gathering strength. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, once dismissed as fringe extremists, began to attract attention. Their rallies grew larger, their message more resonant with a population desperate for answers. How did Hitler, a failed artist and former soldier, go from shouting in beer halls and on street corners to standing at the very heart of German power? What made his message so compelling to so many? The answer lies in his ruthless use of fear, propaganda, and a chillingly precise understanding of human psychology. Nazi propaganda flooded the streets and airwaves, tapping into the hopes and fears of a battered nation. Hitler promised to restore Germany's greatness, to bring order out of chaos, and to give people someone to blame for their suffering. He knew exactly which buttons to push: nationalism, economic anxiety, and a sense of lost pride. By exploiting these vulnerabilities, he offered simple answers to complex problems, and many were eager to believe him. And when the Great Depression struck in 1929, plunging millions more into poverty and despair, the stage was set for a dramatic shift. The old order seemed powerless to help, and people looked for new solutions. In this climate of desperation, millions clung to any glimmer of hope. Hitler offered them not just hope, but a vision, one that was dangerously seductive, and ultimately catastrophic for Germany and the world. 1933. Adolf Hitler is appointed Chancellor of Germany. But here's the question: did he truly earn it, or did the political elite underestimate him? Within weeks, the Reichstag fire gave him the excuse to consolidate power. The Enabling Act, a legal loophole that made him virtually a dictator. Step by step, Hitler dismantled democracy, creating a totalitarian state. Was the world watching, or turning a blind eye? From there, Hitler's control was near absolute. Opposition silenced, media manipulated, the SS and Gestapo ensured obedience, and as Germany rearmed, his ambitions grew: expansion, conquest, war. But amid all this, a question lingers: what about Hitler himself? Was he invincible, or deeply paranoid, haunted by the fear of betrayal? Fast forward to 1945. The world is in chaos. The Second World War, which has raged for nearly 6 years, is finally reaching its devastating conclusion. Across Europe, cities lie in ruins, and millions of lives have been lost. The Nazi regime, once so powerful, is now crumbling under the relentless advance of Allied forces from both East and West. The war is collapsing, and the Allies are closing in. Berlin, the heart of Hitler's empire, is under siege. Soviet troops push through the city's shattered streets, while American and British forces tighten their grip from the other side. The sound of artillery echoes day and night, and the once mighty capital is reduced to rubble and despair. Hitler retreats to his bunker beneath Berlin. Deep underground, in a fortified labyrinth known as the Führer bunker, he surrounds himself with his closest aides. The world above is falling apart, but down here, Hitler clings to fading hopes and delusions of victory, issuing desperate orders to armies that no longer exist. And here comes the story we all think we know: April 30th, 1945, the day that would mark the end of an era. News spreads quickly: Hitler is dead. The world reacts with shock, relief, and disbelief. Crowds gather in the streets, some mourning, others celebrating the fall of a dictator. Hitler, in the heart of the Reich Chancellery, supposedly dies by suicide. But did he? The official story claims he took his own life alongside Eva Braun, his longtime companion, as Soviet troops closed in. Yet, almost immediately, questions began to swirl. Was this really the end, or just the beginning of a new mystery? Eyewitnesses reported the event, but the accounts were, well, inconsistent. Some claimed to have seen the bodies, others only heard rumors. Dental records confirmed, according to Soviet investigators. But the evidence was shrouded in secrecy, and the Soviets themselves fueled speculation by withholding details. Meanwhile, rumors of Hitler's survival spread like wildfire, whispered in hushed tones across continents. Could the Führer have escaped, vanishing into the shadows, leaving a trail of myth and conspiracy? For decades, stories would emerge of secret flights, hidden submarines, and mysterious sightings in far-off lands. The truth remains elusive, and the legend of Hitler's final days continues to haunt history, blurring the line between fact and fiction. Over the years, stories emerged from Argentina, Spain, even Antarctica, whispers of a man who eluded the Allies. Was it just post-war hysteria, or could there be a shred of truth? Declassified Soviet files fueled speculation, showing confusion and conflicting reports about Hitler's remains. And yet, the official narrative remains suicide. But as history shows, sometimes official doesn't mean true. So why does this matter? Because understanding Hitler isn't just about dates and events, it's about human psychology, societal vulnerabilities, and the terrifying power of manipulation. How could one man convince millions to follow him blindly? And even more chilling, could it happen again? Somewhere. Sometime. The lessons are not just historical, they are warning signs for the present. And the question that lingers over every history lesson, every documentary, every book, is this: did Hitler truly die, or did the myth of his death become part of a narrative designed to close a dark chapter of history neatly? Some historians insist the evidence is solid. Others, well, they argue the gaps are just too significant to ignore. Perhaps the truth is buried, somewhere, waiting to be uncovered. Hitler's rise to power shows us the terrifying ease with which fear, hatred, and propaganda can dismantle a society, and his death, or disappearance, reminds us that history isn't always as clear-cut as textbooks suggest. There are shadows between the facts, gaps where conspiracy thrives, and human curiosity refuses to let go. So, when we look at Hitler, do we see a monster, a genius, a madman, or all of them at once? And when we question the circumstances of his death, are we chasing fantasy, or confronting uncomfortable possibilities? History is rarely neat, and sometimes the most chilling truths hide in plain sight. The rise of Hitler, the fall of a nation, and the lingering mystery of his death. These are not just stories from the past, they are mirrors reflecting the fragility of democracy, the dangers of unchecked power, and the shadows of human ambition. The question remains, did Hitler really die, or did history decide it was safer for everyone to believe he did? And now, the story is yours to ponder.